welcome to Backstage Agents. This is special because it's the first episode.
This is the first.
And we have no idea what we're doing, but we were sitting around the cigar shop and decided, maybe we should give this whole thing a shot. And after a couple of weeks, here we are, giving it a try.
Yeah.
And we're going to have some fun with this. So.
Well, they say a podcast is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's not a new idea. However, it's a good way to get a long conversation, an interesting conversation, hopefully.
Yes.
So happy to be here.
Yeah, and we are in a unique place in Nashville, and there's a ton of real estate and other individuals who have different backgrounds that led them to doing real estate, and that's the story that we want to tell. And we are both two of those people who came from different places and ended up in real estate. So your story has always been interesting to me because you started in real estate in Florida, and then you picked up and moved to Nashville, which is backwards. I was 18, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, and said, I'm going to move to Nashville, and did that. And had I known how hard it was going to be at 18 years old, I would have stayed in Wisconsin. So when you decided to move to Nashville, how old were you?
I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. When you get to Nashville, a lot of people change their names. They change their age.
Well,
I wish I rolled it back 10 years. I probably could have got away with it.
Yeah.
I was in my 30s.
Okay.
Early, mid-30s.
So what led to that decision? Because you had built a successful real estate career down in Naples, Florida, and you decided one day that you were going to pick up and move to Nashville and write songs. Can you walk me through why you felt like you had to move up here and give that a try?
A series of events happened. I went to college. I got out of college and I went into music in Naples, which is interesting. Much to the chagrin of my father, who wanted me to go into corporate America, I said, I'm going to start my own business. It's called Live Acoustic Music. So I did, and took all my knowledge and formed a corporation of one, an S Corp. I called it 4Play Inc., like any dumb, young 20-year-old person would do. And no offense. And but that was a short stint. You could make music in Naples, playing music. I mean, you could make money playing music.
Were you doing covers down there? Were you doing original music? So pretty much all covers?
I was doing I did all covers. This is the Margaritaville place, Brown Eyed Girl, Moondance. Then I started to write songs. And I'm like, I really like this. And I was terrible at it. I mean, I don't know anybody. There's a few exceptions, but I was absolutely terrible, but fell in love with the idea of creating something out of nothing. But growing up in Naples, Naples pretty much invented real estate. Because it's built on sand, mosquitoes, and, there was nothing there. So, and I watched it develop over growing up. The whole town revolves around the real estate industry. It's different now, but certainly then. Expensive real estate.
Yeah, it's one of the most expensive places in the country. I feel like what everybody has come to know as luxury real estate now got its start down in Naples. Yeah, the prices in Nashville here, the price points are just... I was growing up, so I was starting to see, leap back to the story, I was tired of seeing people making a lot of money around me in real estate. Even back then, a house on the beach there is $20-30 million, the nice houses. But now they're ridiculous. I just saw a listing in Naples for $300 million on the beach in Port Royal. So it's Port Royal is just what it sounds like in Naples. And so I went from playing weddings at the Port Royal Club for those people. Not that I sold houses for the Port Royal community, but I got out of music into real estate, built a business,
My dad passed away. He was 53. He had 2 different forms of cancer. And I said, well, that really changed my outlook on life. Like I'm not going to live forever, period. We're not. That's, that's reality. But when you see that happen, it changes you. It changed me. And my dad worked his whole life to retire at 55. And he was going to do that probably. And he died at 53.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it just made me rethink everything. And I'm like, well, by that time I had written songs and I'd gotten better at it. And I started writing with a guy from Nashville who moved to Naples, who was a seasoned road dog like you. He played for Ricky Van Shelton for years. He played for Randy Travis. And he taught me how to co-write, which I never did before. And in a Nashville way, and it was very eye-opening. And all of a sudden, those songs are way better. You know what I mean? Like, just having that skilled person in the room. So after my dad died, I was like, and this is like after the subprime, during it. So the real estate market wasn't like fantastic in terms of, man, I really can't wait to do that. I was really not feeling great I was grieving, it was happening. A lot of turmoil that goes with someone passing away. Everything you can imagine happened. Everything you can imagine. And I said, I'm going to go back to music because I started to write again to deal with the way I felt. It was therapeutic. And I was writing better songs. And I started playing with some guys and started doing gigs just for fun. And it made me feel better. And it started to turn into like a band. And we were just having fun with it. But I'm like, life is short. I want to, how good am I? Like, really? How good am I? What do I got to do to find out? And then I went to, like, Berkeley had an online program. That's about as good as you're going to get for living in Naples. So I took some songwriting course. And the guy at the Berkeley online thing used to work for Warner. And he was like, wow, man, you're doing some good stuff. And I'm like the old guy, right? And but he gave me some advice. And I said, man, can I really write? Can I do this here? He goes, no, you can't do that in Naples. You can't be this is then. Maybe you can do it now. But he said, you got to go to a music city, man. You got to go to L.A., New York, or Nashville. And I would recommend Nashville. So I was born in Pennsylvania. So I'm like, I've been in New York. That sounded like, no, that's just too much. L.A. seemed too far. I've never really been there, but I've been by there. And I was like, couldn't see myself being a California person. So we came to Nashville. I was married at the time and just kind of hoped for the best. And as soon as we got here, I was like, this feels good. And not long, I met a bunch of people that were just like me. And they were like my age. And I'm not used to being around people at my age because Naples is like God's waiting room. That's what we call it. If you're from Collier County, if you grow up in Collier County as a kid, it's not, at least then, it was not like the happening place for a kid. We had the beach and the police, and trying to duck and dodge them, the police at all times growing up there. But so I'm in Nashville, a bunch of people my age, super creative people, brilliant minds. I'm like, wow, this is cool. And I jumped into, but I came here with savings. And what I've learned in my life is, if you want what somebody has, you have to do what they did to get what they got. And I'm like, well, how can I make money doing this? Because guess what? I needed money to live.
Yeah.
I was married, wanted a family, that cost money. And I had all this real estate experience, but I'm like, I just blocked it out and put blinders on. I decided songwriting was the thing I'm going to do. I'm not going to be an artist. You know what I mean? In Naples, everything's the same. If you're playing music, you bring the gear, you sing, you dance, whatever I don't dance. Whatever the thing you do, you have to do all of it. Here I came, I'm like, there's a PA set up.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't have to bring it. Just plug my guitar in. So there's all the different aspects of the music business. Touring musician, publishers, A&R, and they all have a function. Songwriting was its own thing. To make money at it is absolutely insane. To be a successful songwriter, it's a hard road. Especially then, because there's no second place. You're either on the charts or you're broke.
Yeah.
And even if you're on the charts, you better invest your money wisely, because that's, what happens in between that money is a good question. So I met with a couple hit songwriters that were I was lucky enough to. One of them was just a friend of the guy in Naples who met with me and told me what was going on. He said, "You should have been here 10 years ago." I said, "Well, I'm here now. What can I do?"
Yeah, that's so funny, because when I moved to town, that's what everybody said. Should have been here 10 years ago. And I feel like that is true of anything that I've ever started in my life. It's like, you should have done this 10 years ago. But
same with real estate.
Yeah, exactly. Should have done that 10 years ago. But there's no time as good as the present.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere, whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
And so I started to write songs and act like I want a publishing deal. Like, that's what I thought I wanted at the time, which gave me a place to write on Music Row, feel legitimate. I'd see those beautiful faces on the banners, and I'm thinking, man, like if I really do it, like that could happen to me. And so I started to do that, and I started to see how good I was, which wasn't that good, Christian, to be honest with you.
I had a similar experience when I moved to town, coming from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Big fish, very small pond, and then I came down here and it started playing around, and thankfully I had a buffer. I went to school down here in college, but immediately got to town and realized I kind of suck at this, and I have a whole lot of work to do to get better at this. Was that your experience when you moved to town?
Yeah. The people who I met who were really good, they said they were the most humble. And they some of them just straight up told me, like, and they didn't have to tell me. I realized that if I'm going to make it, I need to be humble. In terms of, I need to understand just how much I need to learn. Some people come to Nashville as a musician or a songwriter, and they think they're so good, and they never let go of that. They fight for how not good they are, and they lose their mind.
Yep.
They self-destruct.
Yep.
And I wasn't there. I knew I needed a lot of work, and I was lucky enough at the time. There was a publishing company who had an open door, and like a workshop, like a major publishing company, probably the most major one on Music Row. So namesake wise, but yeah, I mean, I got to go there weekly. I got to submit songs and put my songs on the chopping block. The table was similar to this. There was a small group of people with a publisher, and then they bring in different people from the music business, like whether they were hit writers or A&R people or iconic writers. I got to hear from all kinds of people, but week after week I'm bringing in a song and getting it picked apart, just really shredded. And some people would go in that class and they'd leave, they'd cry. They literally would not come back. They would cry and go home. They would go home and cry. One guy I know almost wrecked his car. He was crying so bad because he thought he was so good. Justin. Anyway, but I was determined. And the guy was like, man, this isn't about you're going to get a cut. This isn't about you're going to bring in a hit. But at the same time, I knew if I did an undeniable song, you can't, some songs are undeniable. They stand alone. If you're not writing with an artist, And you're right. If you and I are writing with a song, we have to write a song so good that another artist wants to do it, a major artist.
Yeah.
Kenny Chesney hears it like, wow.
Yeah.
So what do you got to do? Well, you got to beat the best people in town.
Mm-hmm.
They've been doing it for years. They've written thousands of songs. They are killers.
Mm-hmm.
They are straight killers. So I'm like, the reality of how hard it was just intensified the pressure of that. However, over time, I wouldn't stop.
Yeah.
It was like a 6-week workshop. I'd go again.
Mm-hmm.
Faces would change. I'd go again. And the person that was running the show there noticed that.
Yeah.
I kept getting better. I'd take it on the chin, and I was trying to produce my own stuff. And one day I brought a song in that stopped. Like they would play a verse and a chorus.
Mm-hmm.
And if the guy the guys would go into their little trances to listen.
Yep.
When publishers, like real people, song people with ears, when they really listen. So this guy really listened.
Yeah.
Most of the time he could barely get through a verse. But he was respectful to the writers. But the one day I went in there, he played a song all the way through. And he gets up off his chair, and they have a CD player. And he hits play again, sits back down, goes back into his trance. This happened like 3 or 4 times. The whole class was like, what is going on? And I'm like, to myself, I'm like, whatever's going on is great.
Yeah.
And he's like, Dan, can you stay after? Let's talk. And I'm like, hell yeah, I can stay after. Let's talk.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it really, that's when I began to just get my foot in the door.
Yeah. So I've noticed that in the time that I've been doing mortgage lending and having a long history as a touring musician, playing on records, those kinds of things, there's a lot of transferable skills between the music world and the real estate world. And some of what you said in there, just having that ability just to be able to continually be knocked down and not have your ego bruised and just come back. Mm-hmm. Did that come from the real estate world from you? And because I know that's something that I struggled with when I moved to town. Like I definitely spent some time licking my wounds. And because I was young, back home, everybody thought I was amazing, and I came down here and I wasn't. I had a lot of work to do. I failed a couple of times on gigs, and it was just a huge, every time I did that early on, it felt like a huge setback for me, and it really took me some time to overcome those hurdles mentally. But it sounds like for you, when that happened, you just kind of pulled up your boots and went straight back in for more. You didn't let that slow you down. And did you have any experience just from real estate, which is similar in that helped you just keep pushing forward?
100%. I mean, it's a sales gig, man. I hate, people who get the real estate license. Back when I got my license in my early 20s, there was no Zillow. Cell phones were relatively new. Texting was relatively new. People did pick up their phone. People had landlines. It was about prospecting.
Mm-hmm.
There was people who could never make a phone call to a stranger. They still exist today. Not to knock them down or anything, but it's it's like we're real estate agents. In Florida, they call it real estate salesperson on the license. They don't make any mistakes about it, Tennessee's a bit different, and then being a realtor is different. But yeah, like rejection is part of the gig. That should be the name of that should be the tag of the podcast, because I was fortunate enough, Christian, to lose a $50 million land deal in Naples when I had my real estate license for 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
True story. You've heard it many times. I'm not going to bore you with it, but, hit me up after, getting the DMs. I'll tell you about it. But, yeah, it's when you lose a huge deal, when you get your license, you get your first deal, you start doing math. You get really good at math. You get all that stuff in high school percentages and stuff. You get so good at it. You get that check in your head before the closing. You start spending on stuff. You start buying clothes and putting down payments on a Land Rover you can't afford, whatever. So, but yeah, it was sales and marketing are two different things. But sales is about taking it on the chin. For a small stint, for a couple of months, 6 months, I worked for the Hyatt, the corporation, and I worked in the vacation club, which is a nice way of saying, timeshare. Okay, just to be honest, and not to put that down, because the Hyatt has really great vacation clubs. So does the Ritz-Carlton. So does, I think, the Four Seasons now. Don't quote me on that, but. But I was the guy that went out in the booth at the Miramar outlets, and I'd have a Hyatt shirt, and we'd have our little kiosk, and I'd come with my, this is before I had my real estate license. This is my transition into real estate in Naples. I'm like, I'm sick of playing gigs. Singing 3 hours a night, 4 days a week is a hard gig by itself. I can only be at one place at one time. I'm going to start to work for the Hyatt. And the gig was like, really, this is the rejection. Rejection is when people are coming your way and you have 2 reservations in your back pocket, and your job is to get people to go to the Hyatt that had no plans to go to the Hyatt, right? And it'd be like walking and being able to look at a crowd of people and find what we called queues. Queues were qualified people. People had to qualify. You're a pre-qualified guy. So I had to become an expert in like profiling people to say, okay, that's a married couple. They make over $75,000. Like, I'm not right all the time, but being able to look at the crowd and say, there it is, there it is, there it is, and then approach those people and do what? Get them to go to the Hyatt. And a lot of times, those people were not nice to me.
Yeah.
They were not nice to me. Like, almost all the time.
Yeah.
But I just wanted the one. And I remember I'd get out of my car and I'd start, because we had these reservation things, I'd start slapping them against my leg, and just like pumping myself up, because I need to get rejected quick. The quicker I can get that rejection, it's like freeing. It's like asking a girl out and saying no. Like, you become invincible once you get rejected.
Yep.
So I'd go out there in the morning, and I'd be like, "Oh, Christian, did you get your 2 free rounds of golf for the Hyatt? Oh, yeah, come on." And I'd just turn around, and like a lot of people would just follow me. And then if someone repelled me, like, get the way, I'd be like, "Oh, cool, I'm good now." Like, I've had my rejection for the day. Come back to real estate or come back to music. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's where being older helped.
Yeah.
If I would have came here and started this at 20 and got my teeth kicked in by the big bad Music Row Bulldogs, I don't know.
Yeah.
I probably couldn't take it. So hats off to y'all.
Yeah, it was definitely hard to deal with when I was 18, 19 years old, coming to town, and you have those first couple of gigs that you're doing, and they either don't go well, you don't get the call back, and it was definitely a hit on just my overall mental attitude towards it, and it took a while to come back from. And it's funny now being on the mortgage lending side and kind of starting over from zero and going through that process again. And now it's like, I don't even stop to think twice about it. Like it is just part of it, because in music, like, I mean, I've been at the bottom, and then I've been pretty near the top, and, I've been hired on gigs, I've been fired on gigs, and you just you get this exterior that the older that you get and the more you go through it, the less you care about it. And you're still going to have those situations that'll rock you, and that'll take a minute to come back from. But I mean, every one of them kind of just adds to that feeling of, it's not invincibility, but you just handle it a lot better. I mean, one of my favorite players in town, after I got let go from a gig, and he said, "Man, your resume can't get bigger if you don't get let go from a gig, or if you don't leave a gig."
Right. Yeah. It's part of it's just part of the gig, man. Like you're gonna run out of people, you know. That's real. Like when you get your license, most people will say, make a list of all the people you know. That's your center of influence. That's where you start. All those people know you're new. Maybe some of them will cut you a break. They'll let you do a deal. Hopefully you won't screw it up. Too bad. You know, and that's how it started for real estate for me. But there comes a point where you run out of people you know. For me, at least. And you have to go talk to that stranger. Now, Nashville was all strangers. I didn't know anybody in Nashville, which was kind of cool in a sense. But yeah, I mean, you become sort of, you just get stronger, I think, you know. And then when good things happen, I'm happy, you know. Like if your expectations are low, then you can easily get grateful for the wins.
Yeah, I adapted that mindset pretty quickly. It took me a while to get there, but just I always set the bar so low.
Yeah.
For whether that be on a gig that everybody was talking up or doing something for the first time or going in for an audition. I would always set the bar basically at 0. And because it made dealing with the disappointment, if it didn't go the way that I thought it was going to, or thought that it should go, I wouldn't be disappointed about it if it didn't play out that way and it played out entirely different. I mean, some things that I did in my career, playing music, you build it up in your mind and you think it's going to be so cool, and then you get there and it's the exact opposite. It turns into a nightmare. And then some of the other things that you think are just going to be the worst thing on the planet end up being the coolest things that you get to do. So I learned very quickly just not to have any expectations, just to go in with an open mind and approach everything with an open mind.
Yeah. And then that's where having skills comes into play. You bring those tools with those sales skills, that's what you bring to the party. But going to music, like an expectation, some of the best music, and I bumped into it. Things happened. I couldn't have planned for it, but I was there.
Yep.
I remember something my dad told me when that deal was happening, and then, as I started to succeed and good things started to happen, he's like, you know why that happened, Dan? Because you're in the game. You got to be in the game.
Have to be present to win.
You got to be present to win. And it's like when you got your mortgage license, I was like, oh my God, this is so bad. Bright-eyed, bushy-tailed to the music industry, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed to the mortgage industry. I had just gotten done closing a real estate company that I started while rates started to climb. And but I also thought, wow, well, if you don't know any better, if that's just the way it is, then you have nothing to compare it to. You didn't get rich refinancing everybody's house. People who did were rudely awakened when those rates went up. You got really good at the hardest time to sell loans, I think, because you did the hard thing that nobody was really willing to do. Maybe not everybody, but when you're willing to go to an open house to talk to a stranger, an agent that you don't know, and try to, what are you doing? You're selling yourself. You're selling yourself. You're presenting yourself. This is what it is. And building your book of business, one agent at a time. It's similar to how real estate agents operate. But yeah, it's
funny. I treated that like I treated auditions in the music world, because if you get called for an audition for any sort of signed artist at any level, the expectation is you can play the music.
Right.
That's the expectation. You're not auditioning your ability to play the music. That's the given in the room. When you walk into that room, you basically have 15 minutes to make an impression on people that you're going to live on a bus with, which is under 500 square feet that they put sometimes up to 12 people on. And they're not judging your musical ability. That's expected. What they're trying to see how are you going to function on a bus during the other 23 hours of the day.
Yeah.
What are you like as a person? Are we going to want to rip you out of your bunk and stab you in the middle of the night, or are you going to be cool to hang out with?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they're judging you at. And mortgage lending was the same for me. Anybody can close loans. That's the given. That's the part of your job that you have to be able to do. But it's the personality part of it. How are you going to handle clients? What's the impression that you're going to make? Are you going to help the realtor sell the deal? All of these other things, like the loans, that's the given. And it's all the other stuff when you go and you're meeting these agents that matters. And I took that from music into lending, where it's like, this is just basically auditioning, and I'm not going to get all of these. I'm not even going to get a majority of these, but all I need is one, you know, if in a certain period of time. So it's funny how translatable those skills are. And I feel like for real estate agents that they're more client and facing, where they're having to do that for the people that they're trying to get into homes. There's so many realtors to choose for. Why are you the one that they should choose? Which is kind of why we wanted to sit down and do this podcast, because people do business with people they know and like, and people who are relatable and have a story and want to tell those stories. So now you mentioned you popped back into real estate in Nashville. What led you to sort of, you were doing the songwriting thing. What led you to jump back into real estate after you got here?
Well, you know, as time went on, I was married at the time. We got pregnant, and you know, one thing in Nashville is you can't force things to happen. You could try, maybe. Man, if you succeed at that, man, I don't know what that's like, but I tried to put the gas on success. I was in the middle of a lot of great stuff, and then I tried to speed things up, and I self-destructed. To be honest with you, people who know me know that. Fell to the you know, the dark side of the music business, which is real, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's right. The sex, drugs, rock and roll, power, property, and prestige. And when you're a writer, it's weird because you're really only famous here. Nobody cares. Nobody knows, you know. But it's a real power trip. And so anyway, I try to make stuff happen quicker. And here's the thing, man. Like, how am I going to talk about this? Let's just say things got really out of hand. Let's just say things got really out of hand really quickly. And, you know, I'd come to town clean for 10 years. And then somewhere along the way, that changed. Okay? And that was in the middle of trying to make it in the music business. And I had an epic fall from grace, to say the least. So you say, why did I go back to real estate? Well, I needed the money, and that's what I knew how to do. And two is, like, I kind of really blown it with some people in the business, which, you know, hopefully they've gotten over. This was years ago. This was 2015, okay? Almost 10 years ago now. So, but I went back to what I knew, but I was starting from scratch. And the way I knew how to sell real estate changed. I mean, the world had changed, and I went back to work. So I was given an opportunity to go to work for a team. Shout out to Bernie Gallerini. You know, he gave me a shot. I knew him I met Bernie back in Fort Lauderdale at a Mike Ferry event. We were doing role play, and Bernie's such a distinct looking man. You know, he has this like a Tony Robbins looking man.
Yeah.
When you're role playing face to face, you'll never forget it. And I never forgot his face, and I always remembered he said Hendersonville. And I remember he was on the rookie panel, All Star 20. He sold 25 houses that year. He started when I did. So hats off to you, Bernie. You've killed it. And but he gave me a job, and I was working on the phones. I put that headset on, man, and I started to make cold calls. To who? To for sale by owners, to expired listings, to canceled listings, circle prospecting, all the work nobody wants to do.
Yep.
The work they tell you to do that nobody wants to do. That is just no, hang up on me, scream at me, yell at me. So I was just getting covered in rejection, but it was money that I needed, and I knew, because I had I never got rid of my Florida license the whole time I was in Nashville. I still have it today, and but I need to get a Tennessee real estate license. So I knew I wasn't going to stay on the team because I just wasn't. That wasn't the way I knew how to do it. So, and then I went to Village Real Estate. Was right by. It was in Hillsborough Village, of course, but right by Music Row. I'm like, that's the building I pass all the time. What's going on in there? And I looked in that building back then, and I was like, this is the nicest place I've ever seen. And I've been to a lot of real estate offices in Naples, but it felt like home. The people were really cool. The broker was awesome. That was Bobby Noreen at the time. Amazing person.
Yeah, a lot of the agents that I know who are in music, they started at Village, which became Parks, and as of this week is now Compass.
Yeah, keep changing.
Yeah, they do. But it seemed like everybody who talks about Village, they kind of had that same impression of it, where it just seemed super cool, different, cool, a great place. And did you find that after you were trying to force the music thing that you just needed some space from it?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I needed money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then if the only way I make it is if I get a number one on the radio, because you've had not a number one on the radio. Christian, we'll find that out in his episode. But Christian has not a number one song on an album. And how much have you made? I don't know. Let's not go there.
Yeah, I mean, $7 a quarter.
Yeah, so you either make $7 a year for that, but you're on a major album with a major artist as a writer.
Yep.
So you either make this much money or a bunch of money. There is no second place, really. Maybe you get a draw, you get a publishing, but that's just to eat, ramen and Weight Watchers frozen dinners. I mean, that's what it gets you.
And it's recoupable.
It's recoupable if you stay there long enough and you do get that song, they get their money back. So but there again, I like forcing things to happen. I tried, man. And I knew it wasn't going to work. And I just didn't know how bad it was going to be when my house of cards came crashing down. And it was way worse than I thought or could have ever possibly imagined. So I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend, I remember I met the guy who wrote Rodeo for Garth Brooks and Unanswered Prayers, this guy's great, Larry Bastian. And he just had the simplest wisdom about songwriting, but it just applies to everything. He's like, if you're writing a song, and it's not working, just don't push. Don't push, Christian. Go outside and play with your chickens. Because the guy lived on a farm or something. And it's so true. Don't push. Let things happen. And I was in a position where I just couldn't wait to get that money. So I had to go back to real estate.
Yeah.
And you can make good money in real estate, but it was also kind of a bummer because during that time, the Nashville show came out. The Secret was loose. Nashville is the most awesome place in the world, one of them, but is for music, Music City. A lot of people think it's just country music. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
It's not.
Especially now, you have more and
Yes.
more genres moving to town. I feel
Yeah.
like every day I meet
Right.
somebody who's moving to town who was huge in LA, who's uprooting and moving over here.
Because it's a great place to live. It's a family place. It's a great place to raise kids. So again, going back to why did we come here in the first place? That was part of the reason. Like, this is a great place to have a family. People who bought real estate back then, was a slam dunk. You could have bought anything.
Yeah.
If you Airbnb'd it back then, you're really killing it today. You're probably on a boat somewhere, collecting money. But I didn't do any of that. I didn't do any. I just had my head down. So when I got back into real estate, and I was like, oh my God, really? Do I got to get back into real estate? And I was looking around, and no disrespect to everybody here, but I was like, really? I mean, come on. I didn't feel like it, honestly. So, but I did what I had to do. But I try to. You did it different. You just let everybody know I'm selling mortgages. I didn't do it that way. I didn't want the people I knew who are professional, heavy duty writers to know I was selling real estate, because they absolutely had no respect for that. Honest, some of them. Because when you and I are writing a song, and we're professional songwriters trying to write a song, maybe Blake Shelton will cut. You're writing to feed your family. If my phone goes off and I'm like, wait a minute, I got to take this call where I might make a big commission, that's going to be the last time you write with that person.
Yeah.
If they have any sense of self-respect. So I didn't want to tell the people that I was in real estate, that from the music business, and then we got divorced. You know, that happens sometimes, and happened to me. We're two different people going in different directions. It's the best thing to do, and but when people get divorced, a lot of people go in this direction or that direction. So like all the people went in that direction. So I started my real estate career from scratch.
Yeah.
In Nashville. And then I had a very young child to raise, half of the time, in diapers, then pull-ups. And I was like, how do I do this? And I did the best I could. That's how I did it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not going to, and the thing about real estate is like you get showings, you get listing appointments. You can plan on it. You know, you can do your best to prospect to say, well, this will amount to this amount of business if I stay at it today. But if I have I can't, like my parenting plan, and then, well, this is when I'll go on the listing appointments. It's very hard to do that. And I didn't want to, I had a kid that was so young, I didn't want to delegate that to anyone. I wasn't going to do that. Especially considering, you know, if you go, you can take someone to see a bunch of houses, they don't buy a house. Like I couldn't live with that. See, that's where having the experience, for better or worse. You know, I gave up money to be a good father, but I had enough money to keep doing that. I know, and I'm grateful for that. And a lot of people can't. And I'm not saying I'm better than those people, but that's the choice I made.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have changed. I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah. And so now your daughter's a little bit older. You're writing songs again, and you're also doing real estate again. Walk me through, real estate wise, what you're trying to do now.
Yeah. Well, see, I got back into sales, and then I realized maybe I want to start a real estate company, you know, because that way I can really work with people. You know, a lot of people say, well, brokers are failed real estate agents or whatever. Some are, some aren't. And the fact of the matter is, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, no offense, it's like if you're a new agent, if you're young with your license, and young to me is different than young to some people, like that means you're single, you got all time in the world, you can go on the drop of a hat, you're going to look better, you're going to, all that stuff. But I was like, well, if I start a company, then I can recruit, I can run it as a business, I can help the agents that work for me become better at what? At selling themselves, right? Because do you sell houses? I had a guy, a very interesting guy, say to me, I didn't close him when it comes to his house. And the thing about houses, people are going to buy the house or they're not. If I got to twist your arm to buy the house, I don't know about that. Now I can, if you need a little nudge, you know what I mean? Because you never did it before, it's what you want to do, you're scared, and you need to be like, it's going to be all right, dude. That's different than putting the arm on somebody and selling it like a car. A house is not a car. It's not. And so the best you could do, in my opinion, so these are things I know. These are things I know I can share. These are things that have helped people get more closings. I have knowledge through hard-won experience, through wisdom, through getting my teeth kicked in, that you can't get any other way. And I thought, well, if I start a real estate company, then I can share that with people and I can make them better agents. Now, am I going to be able to Facebook them? No. Am I going to be able to run their Instagram? No. All the stuff that people do today to get business, YouTube, there's so many ways to prospect actively or passively, different than when, so there was so much I didn't know, but there's some fundamentals that haven't changed. They will never change.
It's like the music business. The fundamentals don't change regardless of how much the industry changes.
There's no new keys.
Nope. And I've watched people try to invent new ways of getting a gig or things of that nature, and the fundamentals, they don't work because the fundamentals are always the same. Even though the business changes, and the music business, I don't know that there is a business that's seen more change in the last 30 years than the music business, but the fundamentals, they're the same. It's still getting in a room with people and writing a song, and then taking that song to a group of highly skilled musicians to record that song, then taking that song and album to another group of highly skilled musicians who are going to bring that to life live. And the fundamentals of that haven't changed regardless of streaming and CDs and whatever the method of getting it to people is. Those fundamentals still very much exist, and I don't see them going anywhere.
Quarter note's still a quarter note.
Exactly.
And you know what? With real estate, to me, I might have a different take on things. I'm not from the South. I've tried to learn manners. I'm better at times than others. But in my opinion, that it's about getting people what they want, helping people get what they want as quickly as possible. And then doing it as skilled as possible, so it seems like it didn't even happen. If you go to a great doctor to get a procedure done, especially you see a pediatrician with a kid, they're like, hey, click, and they get him with the shot. Yep. It's like it didn't even happen. The kid didn't even know it happened. It's like getting with a really skilled songwriter. You're like, did that really happen? And you have this great song. A real pro makes it look easy. So the job, in my opinion, is to get people what they want as quickly as possible. That part hasn't changed. That part's never going to change. Doesn't matter what you look like, what you sound like. If you know how to get people from point A to point B quickly at a high level with the great service part in between, I'm not saying skip on that, is super important. Knowing the contracts, knowing the code of ethics, all the things that go into being a great real estate agent. That is part of the gig. But the gig's the same. Yep. So back to your thing, why did I started a real estate company, then this new company came around that made a whole lot more sense as an owner of a company, as a principal broker of a company, that was saying, man, there's so much about the real estate business, the change, that I don't know. And I wasn't going to stand up in front of a crowd and pretend like I knew how to get business with YouTube, how to grow an Instagram, and then all of a sudden this company presented itself that I'm at now, that had it all figured out, had it all dialed, had some of the best people in the industry teaching those classes. So it's like we went to the agents and said, here's the move we're making. We're making this move, everyone, to this company called Real Broker. Now, if you want to come, that's great. We'd love to have you. If not, we understand. But all that training you're missing that we can't give you here, it's going to happen there. So for me as a broker, and this isn't a plug for Real, this is me saying as a broker, it was, and a company owner, it made the most sense because my heart, it hasn't changed. If I help the people who, if I really serve the people who I'm in business with, and those are my agents, if I take care of them, they're going to take care of me. Mm-hmm. And there came a point where I realized the world's changing, the business is changing, completely changing. And I'm either going to get on the boat or I'm going to get left behind. And I start to look at the time horizon, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I didn't like the way it looked for Settle Down South Realty. Mm-hmm. Realty. I needed to make a good business decision, and I felt like I needed to do what was best for my agents. And where I'm at today is, am I grinding the sales? No, I am not. But do I pick and choose situations where I want to work with people in a like selling real estate capacity? Yes. I'm involved in a lot of different things. Real estate is one of those things. Now that I'm where I'm at with the company I'm at, I have all this. I got to rethink my life again. I got to rethink my time again, my schedule, what I dressed, what I did, all the things. And it took a while to even, because here's the thing. Guess what? If you have this disease called songwriting in your head, in your heart, which I do, it's always going to be there. Mm-hmm. And when I owned Settle Down South Realty, the guitar stayed in the case. Yeah. And it really made me sad after a while. I didn't even know why, you know. But the thing about being a musician in Nashville is if you're a professional, it becomes a job.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So the thing that brought you here, that brought you so much joy, can leave. And that's what we're going to probably be hearing about on this podcast. Mm-hmm. Because people end up in real estate, right? Yep. And did they get there because everything was great and they're making tons of money and they're fulfilled with their heart and music?
Nope.
No. Maybe there's a few exceptions. They want to add a little pizzazz to their life. Mm-hmm. But the reality is doing what I do today, I'm able to go back into songwriting. That has led to all. But, I learned some tricks at the new real estate company that applied to songwriting. Because Instagram's Instagram. Making a reel on Instagram is making a reel on Instagram. Now, put what you want in it. You could put a person making a song. You could put a person selling a loan. Mm-hmm. You could put clips from a podcast. You could put a guy dancing around his living room. That's true. So, and I'm still able to help people grow in the business. Now, what does that mean? Just like, giving people the nudge, giving people the little thing on the conversation when they call me, Dan, I'm in the middle of the deal, and the agent's being like this and this and this and this. Well, try this. That try this from me can be the difference between someone making the commission or not. Mm-hmm. Hate to say it, it's true. Because you could look great, you could sound great, you can get the client, you could be in the deal, and all of a sudden you're dealing with a really terrible agent on the other end of that deal. Or they're adversarial for the sake of being adversarial. They're insecure, so they have to overact. They create problems that aren't there, so they could feel like they're earning their money. Mm-hmm. Listen, call me. That's what I do today. Mm-hmm. I help the people that work with me, where I'm at today, and I'll do it with anybody. But I'm definitely more invested people who. Work with me at my company in whatever capacity. Yeah, I still have a group. Mm-hmm. It's a Settle Down South group. Now the group is unlike any group you've ever heard of, right? Mm-hmm. What do you get? You get a hat. You get a hat, and you get me. Mm-hmm. That's it. Yeah. You could join the group, but that's like if you want one-on-one coaching and you want to role play at 8:00 in the morning. That's a team that isn't Settle Down South. Settle Down South at Real, brokered by Real, is a group. Mm-hmm. Like a bandage, like the Grateful Dead.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know just from being around you, you've been incredibly helpful for me in the beginning stages. And even now in the mortgage lending thing, I will approach you and just be like, Dan, how would you handle this? I mean, you were the guy who first gave me the idea of like, hey, this is an agent that I know. They have an open house this weekend. Drop by. Tell them I sent you. And like, it was just an idea. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, this is how I should go and meet people. And then I've kind of made that into something that I do. So you're definitely have been a great sounding board for me, even on my side of things. And it's awesome to get together with you and spitball with you and sit down. And it's been very helpful for me on several occasions. Like, how do I handle this? What do I do? And so that's been awesome.
Sometimes you just got to air it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's why people go to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to get the poison out.
Mm-hmm.
And then so you could be better and more effective in the deal.
Yeah.
And if you heard it here, folks, I'm taking credit for all of Christian's success. Very humbly. No, Christian did the work. You did the work.
Mm-hmm.
I can just say what I say.
Yep.
But the thing about real estate that to me is beautiful and will always be beautiful to me is it's just like songwriting, in that the deal is what makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the idea of, I got a prospect. I'm putting together two things that didn't exist, just like a song.
Mm-hmm.
We're making something up that didn't exist. It's a wonderful, creative, powerful experience, spiritual experience. Is real estate a spiritual experience? I don't know. But I know the part where it's like creating something out of nothing. Mm-hmm. To me, that is a powerful thing. That is an empowering thing.
Wow.
And so if I can ever help somebody, and I'll do it anyway. Mm-hmm. I believe that golden rule thing.
Yeah.
I'm not easy in general at times. I'm just not. Mm-hmm. But I care.
Yeah.
A lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who really know me know that.
Indeed.
I will go to bat for people. Mm-hmm. My circle's small, but we're tight. You know what I mean? And I just feel like if I help people succeed, I'm going to be fine. Mm-hmm. And that's how it's always worked in my life. Once I realized that in my life, coming out of my 20s and coming out of that greedy, all about me part of just being a kid. Like, the real money is in the service. Service to others.
Yep.
It's a service business. And I'll be rewarded in proportion to the level of service I bring to the people in my life, and if the people in my life are real estate agents that I'm in business with in some capacity, then I'm going to be fine. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm dabbling into this management thing of talent, which I never signed up for, really. But an opportunity presented itself. I'm always looking for those cues, to go back to the timeshare thing. And those are, just call them opportunities. You know, and when I see it, I go after it.
Yeah.
Do I get it every time? Hell no. You know, but I swing for the fences.
Yeah.
And I miss a lot. But I don't care, because I only need the one yes. I only need the one home run. And then I do what I got to do along the way to keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And good things take time.
They do. Yeah. Well, Dan, it's been great having you on. This has been awesome. I'm looking forward to hearing more of your story as we get into this with other agents and talk more. And I'm sure there'll be more of just you and I. Yeah. But thank you for coming on. And I'm excited to co-host this with you and get to know tons of other people who have similar stories and different stories, and be able to share that with the Nashville community. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thanks. And thank you for asking me to be the co-host. I mean, this is great.
Yeah.
Backstage Agents. Is this episode 1?
This is episode 1.
Episode 1, you're going to see all about Christian soon, I think. We're going to have really great guests.
Yep.
Guest list.
Yep.
Get in the guest list, guys. I mean, that's really part of the backstage. Like, if you want to get backstage somewhere, you got to be on the guest list.
100%.
So we're going to have a guest list.
Yep. We'll get you on.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, man.